Ghostly greetings, my dudes. Ghostly greetings. It's your boy Prue. Holler at me. Sorry about that. I dropped a book. I did an audiobook and I read a book while listening to the audiobook. You'll see what I mean. And I'm just going to call this Samurai Book Reviews. First up, I got this Gavin Blair uh, illustrated, the illustrated guide to samurai history and culture. And this is like your step typical uh, I read the Vikings version. I did the Knight version. So now I'm going to do the Samurai one because I'm really getting into Japanese history. It's basically a guide, a walkthrough, if you will, to samurai culture. It's got culture, it's got weapons, it's got armor. I love the artwork. There's a Japanese water painter named Hokashi, and he does this like the Great Wave, the Congo Wave. It's my favorite painting, and I love it. And I know you're thinking I got the beard, I got the Irish flag. I'm more of a Viking than I am a samurai, which that is true. I definitely did go through. I've read a lot of early Scandinavian Norse mythology. I'm a big Viking bro. I like battle axes. I like the whole honor and combat and shit. But always been into Japanese history. I really like the samurai. I really like the honor code, the Bushido code. There's a game I play called Dungeons and Dragons. Everyone knows it, but when I think Paladin, I actually think samurai. I don't think King Arthur. I think samurai and their Bushido ever, heavy armor, single-handed sword, and they did have an honor code. At least they really didn't. But this is lots of chopping off heads and lots of head hunting. But this is really cool. It gave me an illustrated guide through the era and weapons and like the tangs and half tangs of swords and stuff like that. I love the descriptions and the decorations on some of the armor, and it'd be really cool if I was a samurai and I got real good at like a certain tactic. They would give me a nickname, and I'd decorate that like I don't know the mantis, and I'd have like a mantis on my armor, and it'd have green on it or something, and that was kind of cool. Uh, but like manga and anime is definitely a more at the end of the book, with samurai culture and history and influence, and where some of their stuff comes from. And I'll be honest, this was fucking amazing. I did this in one setting. I checked this out at the library. Actually, they sent it to me from a different library, and I loved it. I read that in one setting. I just flipped through the whole book in one day. I came up here, and I had a root beer. I mean, I shouldn't have it, but I really wanted a soda. I had a root beer and half of a Subway sandwich. And I came up here, and that's all I did that day was just read this book. I did laundry, did trash, came up here for the last like couple hours of the day, and read that. But while that was going on, but before I go into I want to talk about this. I want to give this a 5 out of 5. If you're interested in Japanese samurai culture and history and how like actual samurai affect today's pop culture representations of them, give this a solid checkout. This is a great checkout from your library. The artwork alone is just amazing to look at. You know about like codes and female samurais, and not all samurais are Japanese. I didn't know that most. Excuse me, but somewhere. So I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5, and I fucking loved it. That was amazing. But next up, we have Samurai Rising: The Life of I'm gonna butcher this, Minamoto Yasune. I did this one on audiobook, so I'm gonna try to avoid the names as to not offend or upset anyone. I'm not that great at pronunciation of names. You know what I'm saying? But you heard these on the audiobook, you should know them correct. However, time has passed. I'm not the best at remembering stuff. But I will say this starts as this kid's Yoshihune's father and how he got executed. Some of the best executions I've ever read in this book. So there's this old Japanese guy in my head. I'm imagining like this old fat Japanese guy, and he's sitting in the bath because after the end of the war, he's like, okay, let's make peace. I'm gonna take a bath, and he's taking a bath, and these dudes come to assassinate him at this end, and this naked fat old Japanese guy is fighting for his life, and they do eventually get him, but he's checking people out. I mean, he's probably only like 40, but still, I respect him going out like a fucking warrior, and he was naked and he had a sword, and that would suck. Like, oh, honey, what happened? How'd you lose your arm? Well, oh, you come home, you're like, oh, honey, I lost my hand today. Oh, how'd you lose your hand? I had to kill this fat old guy who was taking a bath, and he better than I thought and chopped off my hand. But he gets exiled and he starts as a monk, meets up with his half brother, they join forces. This is a true-ish account. I don't know if all these information in this is factual. I do know a little bit about Japanese feudal history. Over the past 2 years, I've been greatly studying it. I've read like 4 books on it. I've watched shows. I've watched nature doc, nature doc, National Geographic documentaries, I've really fallen in love with the Japanese warrior society over the last couple of years with my studying of martial arts and everything. And I really enjoy the spirits and the essence of the samurai. I am also greatly afraid of like surprises and sneak attacks. So like someone jumping out of a corner and yelling surprise is honestly an anxiety thing for me. So I'm definitely afraid of ninjas, and that seems to go together. Um, but I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, my Japanese feudal history is about that of someone studying it in college. But I have a passion and an interest for it, so I will be studying more of it. And this was just more gold. This was just more good. I just fucking loved this one. The writing was fucking phenomenal. This was written by, hold on, I did this on audiobook. Uh, Pamela S. Turner, and it was amazing. I really enjoyed the audiobook interpretation of this. I really enjoyed this so much that when I get money, I will buy it. There is some artwork in here, not much, but there is some artwork, and it's beautifully drawn. And I love how it sort of, it was a dude exiled, and he came up. Destiny, he didn't choose Destiny. Destiny was like, hey, here's how life's gonna fucking be now. Hey, life's changed to 180. Here it is. Guess what? You're poor again. Back to it. And the dude just adapted. And he's like, well, I can be a bitch, or I can grow a pair of fucking balls, get my sword, and I can go fucking out fighting. And that's what he does. And I respect that. Life throws you some shit curves. This guy especially, naked old father getting assassinated in the bathtub was probably a hard one. Getting exiled to a monastery probably sucked. But with all that, he took in mind he had purpose, he had duty, he had responsibility, he had honor, and he proceeded his life and lived that way. So I really liked this character. I can't, but with fiction, with historical books like these, and my less than perfect knowledge of Japanese feudal history, I don't know if all this is true, but I did enjoy it as a story. And to me, I enjoyed it enough. It seemed factual enough. Nothing was so outrageous. There's no magic, there's no dragons, shit like that. But it was factual enough that I could say that most of this happened. And based on that other book I read, a lot of the dates and weapons and armor match up. So I'm going to say this is probably accurate ish. Everyone's going to have a problem with any kind of historical fiction. But I loved it, and I thought the writing was cool. I loved all the characters. I loved how we went from happy Buddhist to samurai and being one of the most feared warriors in Japan. And I thought that was cool. So I'm going to give both these books an A plus, 5 out of 5. My book of the year is still Tender as the Flesh. I've read like 4 great books this year. It's only January. I got 4 or 5 out of 5. That's a good year so far. This has been your boy Prue, guys. It's late. Go to bed. Stay creepy. Deuces. Both of these are fucking great. Check them out from the library.